Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. If you're enjoying this content, please remember to subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. For today's case, we have a short one dealing with 42 U.S.C. 1983. This is a case of Michael Leroy Sheffick and Vernon Busby. So we're just going to read this case because it's so short. So let's go ahead and get started with this. Michael Leroy Sheffick sued two Gillard County Sheriff's deputies, Vernon Busby and Michael Kerensky, for excessive force under 42 U.S.C. 1983. Following a lengthy car chase and a brief foot pursuit, Sheffick claims he surrendered to the deputies, but they nevertheless beat him in the face with a flashlight, causing severe injuries. The district court granted the deputies summary judgment based on qualified immunity, concluding that a dashcam video substantially contradicted the testimony. That conclusion was an error. The video does not show what happened when the deputies caught, and so could not have contradicted. We vacate and remand. So that's an interesting trick for the trial court. So you can, normally, the normal rule is, right? The normal rule is you take all inferences from the non-moving party, right? Everything the non-moving party says is true. We know this all too well, right? Everything the non-moving party says is true. But we do have kind of an exception. And the exception is if it's palpably absurd, palpably obscene, right? So it would be valid to say, I have a tape of this exact thing, and nothing like that happened. And now that's just because you have an objective piece of evidence, all right? So you have this completely objective evidence, and it's the objective piece of evidence doesn't show anything that's like that. So your claim can't possibly be true, right? It doesn't make any sense at all. So no. So this idea makes sense, but the application here, less so. Because what the district court said is there is a dash camera, and the dash camera completely contradicts the testimony. And the Court of Appeals says, actually, no, because the dash camera didn't capture the incident. So, what was the trial court thinking, man? I don't know. A police dashcam video from the early morning hours of December the 27th of 2016 shows deputies stopping Sharif, running a background check, and asking him to exit. Sharif refuses and drives away. After a nearly 20-minute chase, Sharif pulls off the road, gets out, and runs away in a dark woods. At that point, Sharif is no longer in the video. So we have the video of the initial stop. We have the video of the chase. We have the video when he stopped and got out of the car and ran. And then, he was out of the camera's field of view. For several minutes, the viewer can only see Sharif's truck and trailer, bathed in flashing red and blue lights, and can only hear garbled yelling and cursing over the siren. The deputies eventually brief Sharif back to the cruiser, his face bloodied. During minutes not captured on the video, so, how could it be directly contradicting? Sharif claims in a sworn declaration he had surrendered to the deputies, but they used force to apprehend him anyway, striking him repeatedly in the face with a flashlight and stomping on his forehead. Sharif states that he suffered multiple orbital fractures, a broken nose, and a chipped tooth, and now he has a permanent metal plate in his face. The record does not contain medical records confirming or corroborating the nature of the extent of the injury. The deputies, however, dispute that he was injured during the encounter. So the deputies say the reason he has a bloody nose has nothing to do with us. In any event, the record supports Sharif's contention that he was transported to a hospital by albums and photographs of him in the aftermath of the incident, which are labeled Del Tar Hospital and identify him as a patient, show readily apparent facial injuries. But the deputies do contest the account of the arrest, asserting they used reasonable escalating force in response to resistance, specifically his refusal to present his hands and lack of submission to being handcuffed. So we have two competing versions of stories here. In version story number 1, he completely surrenders and the police whack on him. In version number 2, he doesn't so much and the police whack on him. And so the question might be, in either case, excessive force, right? And so there's some factual dispute. And normally, as I mentioned before, we take all the facts as given by the non-moving party. So for the purpose of our present exercise, but not necessarily for the purposes of all parts of the case, right? We are going to say that what he said is true. So what he says is he ran to the woods, he surrendered, the police beat him. There's certainly evidence to support that proposition, like, the photos. So, that seems to be like, we should let it go to some kind of fact-finding stage instead of dismissing it. And the reason we're dismissing it is because of the dash camera, which doesn't show anything. Sharif sues deputies under 1983 for using unconstitutionally excessive force. The deputies moved for summary judgment, asserting qualified immunity. The district court granted summary judgment, relying heavily on the dash camera footage, which doesn't show anything. Sharif's account, the court held the video substantially contradicted the account and showed that he resisted being cuffed. No. In light of that, the court could not say the actions of deputies were not necessary for apprehension and did not correspond with them seeking escalating resistance. We agree with Sharif that the dashcam footage does not justify discounting his version of the arrest for summary judgment. It is true, on summary judgment, a court need not credit a plaintiff's version of events if it's blatantly contradicted or utterly discredited, such by, for example, video showing that no reasonable jury could possibly believe him. That principle, however, does not apply here because the camera didn't capture anything. Far from contradicting or discrediting the version of the arrest, the video does not even depict the crucial moments. We therefore left with Sharif's declaration, which is how you do this, which describes the deputies severely beating him in the face after he surrendered and was partially handcuffed. That evidence, which we must view in Sharif's favor at this stage, because, creates a material factual dispute as to whether, any of that actually happened in reality. We therefore vacate the summary judgment or remand for further proceedings. Like, maybe some kind of fact-finding would be nice. Some testimony would be nice, maybe. That could be good. So, yeah. Thus, that brings us to the end of the case of Michael Leroy Shifkin versus Vernon Bisbee and Michael Kerensky. In this case, Mr. Shafiq over here was injured by the police as they were attempting to arrest him. There are two different stories. One is he surrendered and they beat him. Two is he didn't surrender and his injuries are due from the justified use of force. And the trial court says, well, that's okay, I can decide this because the dash cam shows everything. And the Court of Appeals says, what are you talking about? The dash cam shows literally nothing. It shows a pickup truck bathed in white and blue. It doesn't show any of these things. What are you smoking? So, yeah. So anyways, this has to go back to trial for, actual fact-finding. And at least for the moment, that brings us to the end of the discussion of this case. Thank you so much for being part of the Uncivil Law family. If you enjoyed this legal education content, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. We appreciate your continuing support. Until later, my friends, cheers and goodbye.